Why does privilege rush to deny itself? This comment was left on a video where I was talking about the way that boomers had socioeconomic advantages, tax advantages, lower cost of living that has enabled them to become far more financially secure than subsequent generations, right? The instability and lack of access has only steadily increased for all of the generations that have followed. And those videos were not a dig against boomers at all. I was talking about the systemic and structural differences that mean that Gen Z does not have access to purchase housing, to have a retirement account. They are far more financially precarious than boomers were. That's a condemnation of the evolution, the devolution of our society and the evolution of late stage capitalism. But I got literally thousands. I lost hundreds of YouTube subscribers. I had people crashing out all over my comments on YouTube, especially, who felt personally attacked as boomers, that I was talking about systems and I was talking about the lack of access that younger generations have had. They chose to take that as a personal attack. And I expressed a little bit of frustration at the way that folks were taking something very personally, were manufacturing offense and choosing to be defensive when it wasn't a personal attack against them. And so when I got this question in the comments, why does privilege rush to deny itself? I think it does very much come back to our sense of self and how in the United States we are enculturated to believe in individualism, that everything we have earned all by ourselves. It is a result of our hard work and toil and our own personal merit and our own personal labor. That is why we are successful, rather than understanding we are part of a complex system. And some of us are privileged in some areas and some are privileged in others. We want to believe that everything we have earned all by ourselves because our culture has told us that individualism is the pinnacle of all, right? You don't want to see the ways that you are supported by others, supported by the system, and often benefit from the exploitation of other people in the system. Because our self-worth as Americans is very much intertwined with the false notion of a meritocracy. If we have to look at full on in the face the ways that we have had advantages, that makes us really distressed and really uncomfortable, because we have been told that our achievements are ours and ours alone. And when you say like you've had privilege in certain ways, you've had advantages that others have not, it undercuts our sense of self, our belief in a meritocracy in the United States, right? Like, especially conservatives have this delusional, that's why they want to get rid of DEI, right? They have this delusional idea that we truly function in a meritocracy. It's why people will simp for Elon Musk and think that he's a self-made man, or they'll think that any billionaire deserves what they have earned instead of understanding that they have taken. They have not earned, they've taken. I think people also fear that their accomplishments will be dismissed entirely, will be dissolved by acknowledging that there is some amount of privilege that they have in the system. And likewise, there are so many ways that people struggle very, very hard, and they don't feel that they have privilege. They don't feel that they have had access to privilege. And that's because no matter how privileged each of us are, we still live in a system where the billionaires run everything, where everybody in the US, even white men, are oppressed by the oligarchy. We all have a shared oppressor. So even if you have tons of privilege and you actively benefit from the exploitation of certain groups, at the same time, like your personal experiences, well, I'm oppressed by the billionaires, even if you don't understand that that's who your oppressor actually is. Especially if you've been told to scapegoat other people who have a shared oppressor with you. But anyway, it can feel like you don't have privilege. That privilege can be very much invisible to people who have it. And at the same time, they are very well aware of the ways that they are disadvantaged and oppressed by the super rich, by the elites, by the ruling class, by the Epstein class. If you want to tie this into resistance work right now, when we are looking at creating alternatives, what is the future of this country that we want to have? What kinds of systemic change do we need so that working class people have their needs met, so that we can prosper instead of becoming increasingly more exploited by the elites? I think that it would, I actually don't know how we would implement it, but I think it would be so good for all of us if we could unpack the toxic individualism that we have been indoctrinated with since our birth, since the inception of this country. If we could learn to unpack all of that and understand that we are connected, we are interwoven with everyone else, that we don't actually do anything all by ourselves. And that's not a blow to us. That doesn't make our accomplishments any less. It doesn't make our worth any less because we are connected to others. I realize this is kind of a permaculture idealistic, right? Earth care, people care, and fair share ideal. But I wish we could have a cultural shift in this country. We could start to transition the way we view our place in society, not as individuals, not through the exploitive lens of capitalism that says me first. Who can I step on my way up the ladder? How can I create my little kingdom, for a man in his castle, right? For me and my family. But instead understanding that we're all in this together. And when we value each other, that we can create a more just and resilient society where we all have a better quality of life. And I think some of that deconstruction of toxic individualism and building an alternative way of functioning in the US starts with all of the really good mutual aid work that we're seeing in Minnesota and across the country. I saw a woman say yesterday that people in Minnesota are hiding folks in their homes. She went on to say that people are taking in laundry from immigrants who no longer feel safe going to the laundromat. I know where I am, people are getting groceries for immigrants who no longer feel safe to go to the grocery store. Folks are going to the pharmacy for each other. In Tacoma and in Minnesota, people are waiting for detainees to be released so that they can give them coats and access to a phone and get them home safe and sound. All of that is really good active care for each other, meeting each other's physical needs. Also, at the same time, it's actively helping us deconstruct from toxic individualism. It's teaching us that our strength comes from our interdependence. Our strength comes from community, that the way that we are going to get out of this, the way we're going to build a society that meets everybody's needs is that we start meeting each other's needs right now. A crucial element of civil resistance is that you build those parallel structures to care for each other that don't exist within our current governmental structure, but that we want to exist and function fully in the time to come. Toxic individualism has allowed the elites, the Epstein class, to come to power. Toxic individualism has made us far, far more vulnerable and weak as Americans. And it's time that we set that aside. We can deconstruct from that. We totally jettison that part of our past. That is not an element of cultural heritage that we want to continue to pass down. We have a chance to reconstitute connection and community, right? Our immigrant neighbors and friends, they understand community far better than we do. I think that's part of at least a small part of why immigrants are such a threat to those in power, is because they don't have generations and generations of toxic individualism baked in. Immigrants are so much better at doing connection and care and sustaining each other. And it's a threat. It's a threat to the super rich. It's a threat to individualism. It's a threat to the power structures in the United States to say, what if we had intergenerational care? What if we had community care? What if we had a society where we prioritized the needs of children above those in power, right? That is something radical and different that the power structure is threatened by, and it's something that we can have in the future. So when we're thinking about those parallel structures, and also when we're thinking about the ways that we feel really defensive and really activated and distressed over people talking about privilege, over people talking about individualism, maybe realize that that's a way that the system is still working on controlling us, and that distress is a sign to us that we've got something there to unpack so that we can become stronger and more resilient, so that we can be successful in defeating fascism.